Hi there, I'm Dean Heskett. Thank you for tuning in to our current episode of our podcast, The Secret War on Cash. In Swiss America, we've been talking about the secret war on cash, on your cash, that's been taking place for years. However, the last several months, a few years in particular, it would seem as though that war has tremendously escalated. And I have with me today Chris Agolestos, my frequent co-host. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, Chris, we're going to pick up pretty much where we left off after our last podcast by looking a little further into the developing situation of BRICS. It is rapidly growing in popularity amongst foreign countries, which we've been covering as it occurs. And these next few articles we're going to look at today are a little different than the others we've covered, as these nations are now taking a much longer or perhaps harder look into the future of their currency systems in relation to their alignment with the BRICS nations. Now, in this first article, South Africa is doing so as they are looking at the utilization of stablecoin, which is to say cryptocurrency. And the reason I think this is significant is because it is evidence of the fact that these countries are taking next steps in their de-dollarization efforts that we've been covering in other shows, and earnestly looking into exactly how they're going to move out of or away from the US dollar. So what are your thoughts on what South Africa is doing with this move or this shift or exploring, let's say, the stable coin?
Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense if you're them, right? They've been very vocal about de-dollarization, obviously, and what BRICS has been doing is essentially transacting with other member nations in their own currencies, which is already having an effect to some extent. But what's the next best way to make that even more accessible and easier to use? And that's creating a currency that is sort of like the euro was for European countries, a coin or a crypto type currency that is backed by BRICS, and BRICS incidentally is backing their currencies with gold, right? So it's something that they hope to be a nice, stable, easy form to be able to transact with. So it makes sense that this is just the next step of going down that path that we've been talking about, and so they're kind of laying the groundwork and planning for the next stages, which obviously is just one more nail, I guess you could say, in the coffin of the dollar. I mean, we're obviously still here. We can still use our dollars at Starbucks and whatnot, but this is just one more step down that path of other nations not needing to use our dollar.
Well, yeah, and as we've talked about in previous podcasts, so many of big money people here in the United States, elected officials, have come out and said, we are so far behind the curve on this, and we're in trouble. I mean, the US dollar is in trouble. This de-dollarization is not going away, and that's, I guess, kind of the little bit of a shift in these articles here that we're talking about on this podcast. They're really taking specific strides in their efforts to do just that, and related to South Africa's recent things that they've been doing, looking into the stablecoin and what have you, and the getting into the crypto world more. India is pretty much doing the same thing, or at least something similar. In their case, they're doing their own research and studies as to what impact it would have if they were to utilize a new BRICS currency. And what I found interesting about this article is that as India has acknowledged that they will be doing this research, they also say they don't plan to release or make public their findings, and we'll discuss them at the next BRICS summit. The explanation as to why they won't make their findings public is they don't want to run the risks of media leaks. Now, to some listening, that may sound totally normal, I guess. Perhaps it is, but if you look at it from the perspective of what the BRICS Alliance has publicly stated, that they want this de-dollarization, it seems like something that they're keeping quiet as to not tip their hand as they try to dethrone the dollar. I mean, do you think there is a chance that this is what's taking place?
Yeah, when I read it, I sort of feel like it's kind of like they're dating. They want to see other people. They're still using the U.S. dollar and very much reliant on it in a lot of ways, but they're looking to get away from that. And so I think a little bit of secrecy makes sense, on their end. Even though we know that they're looking to see other people, we don't know. They don't necessarily want us to have all the details of that. So I think that's part of it. Developing this new BRICS currency is going to be a bumpy path for them and us. And one thing I was thinking about when I was going through this too is just because it's been in the news. The sanctions, the new sanctions against Russia that President Biden has been putting in place over the last week or so. Is just one more reason for them not to want to rely on our dollar. We're freezing assets and making it difficult for them to use our currency. So it's one more reason for them to embrace BRICS. There's really nothing holding them back from creating their own currency at this point. It's just not something that they can flip the switch and do overnight. So I think that's why they're kind of, I don't want to say covertly, but maybe being a little bit quiet about all the moves that they're doing in the background. And this is just one more way where the U.S. is going to be losing power and influence. That's one thing that our dollar has really given us, is a lot of influence over the world. Money makes the world go round, as a lot of people say. And they've needed the dollar to do that. And, moving forward, they're not going to need it nearly as much. And at some point, maybe not at all. So, it definitely makes sense from their perspective. And I think everybody sees where this, people who are paying attention, see where this path leads. We just don't know, is this going to be another 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? I don't know, but we're definitely heading in that direction.
Sure. I think it's a perfect analogy you use too, like dating and what'd you say, dating and seeing other people type
Yeah,
thing.
it's not you, it's me.
That's fantastic. Well, again, as we've said before, this is definitely something that is not going away and something we'll be covering on future podcasts as well. Who knows? It may be something we cover in a few days from now, depending on what happens. It seems like this shift or this move is happening at a pretty rapid pace. Thanks for tuning in. If you have not contacted us to receive your free copy, actually, of our Secret War on Cash report, please do so. You can call our toll-free number, 1-800-289-2646, or visit us online at www.swissamerica.com. If you haven't subscribed to this podcast already, please do so. Follow us on social media, and we look forward to our next podcast with you. And we hope to bring you some great information on some changing developments and things that are shifting in our marketplace and our economy, so we can stay ahead of the curve. Chris, thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. And for those of you tuning in, please do the same.
Thank you.